Okay. I think we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Gotta tell everyone that we are live. Gotta make sure you can hear me. And can you hear me?
I think we are live.
I can hear me. There. All right. Thank you all for coming to Movie Crap tonight. This is another episode. Wait, is something wrong? Well, let's see if something's wrong. Because I am here. It looks good on my end. Let's see how it looks on here. It's telling me, hey, what's up, everybody? Let's see how it looks on the YouTube. It's telling me maybe it doesn't look good. Now I'm worried. How does it look? Oh, it looks fine. YouTube's lying to me. Anyway, this is Movie Crap. Thank you all very much for being here. I like Ryan's comment right there. Let me just get set up. But I think this is going to be an interesting one. A lot of good... I think there's a lot of good I think there's a lot of good topics. Sorry. There also are good questions this week. And I don't know, just like a ton of stuff. Every week has a ton of stuff since I'm a weekly show. And there's movie news all the time and animation news. And there's a lot of big ones this week. Kind of studios moving around, things like that. In addition to everything else. Hold on. And sorry, a tabby closed, and now we're all confused. Jim, been watching the vids of these, and this is my first time watching. Thank you, Jesus B. I saw other people were watching, and this is their first time. Thank you very much. If this is your first time, I hope I do not disappoint you. Yes, this is the new shelf. I hope people have seen the new shelf. I'm not sure if they have. That's not what I wanted. Internet. Okay. All right. It's been crazy. Sophie and I actually watched the first Frozen on Disney Plus, which I think they over-restored, which is like a thing only Disney would be dumb enough to do. All right. Okay. So we have some water. How far in are we? We are just starting. This camera looks nice tonight. Anyway, some water. Sorry about that. Before we fully, let's close that. Okay, sorry. I was just like, fuck it. I'm starting. Fuck it. We're doing it live, as famously, hey Vitor, as we famously say. Anyway, yes, over restores. That means it's more pretty. Yeah, I guess that's what it means, right? Yes, Sophie and I rewatched Frozen tonight. That was a lot of fun. You should check out our slow-mo video, which apparently is not the right file to play on this stream. So apologies. That was my original idea, and then I downloaded the file, and you apparently can't do that. Didn't know that. Anyway, not that you care. But I wanted to preface before we get into it that this show is sponsored actually by viewers like you. I'm totally fan supported, whether by Super Chat or on Patreon. I very much thank everyone for that support. On Patreon, I had the movie review vote winners video recently. I have commentaries, everything like that. Super Chat, I will of course answer your question. If you do not have the financial funds, or you're not financially able to support the channel in any way, just watching or liking or sharing or whatever is very appreciated. Anyway, so let's get into I'm way out of sync. It's out of sync. I have nothing to bring it back in sync, by the way. It's kind of Movie Crap brought to you by the letter J. Thank you, Austin. Thank you. And Juicy Juice. Oh, cheers to you, Austin. Cheers to you. All right. So let's get into the first thing, the first little bit of news here. Let me get all my shit ready. All right, my first little bit of news is this was on Cartoon Brew, and I believe it's quoting another article, but it was basically the president of Pixar who... Anyway, the president of Pixar said that Andrew Stanton, Brad Bird, and Pete Docter will not be here in 10 years. There will be new directors because they're kind of old and everything like that. And Pixar, of course, will have to embrace new directors. Cool. But again, cannot do very much about the sync there. I can't change. Hold on. Yeah, not much I can do, unfortunately. About that. Is it damn it, that sucks. I don't really want to stop it and start over because this might be the same issue. And I can't. Audio's correct. Stream. Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm sorry about the audio problems. Anyway, there's not much I can do, unfortunately. That's a YouTube issue. Let me see. I want to see on my end how bad this is now. This is slowing down the show.
Problems.
Maybe.
Anyway.
Let me hit refresh. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I'm sorry about.
Oh, now you're hearing me listening to me.
Anyway.
Well, hopefully the internet will work better. Now I can't see the chat for some reason, and life is wonderful. All right. Okay. Space Ghost says it's okay. It's fine. All right, so the Pixar president has recently said that they're not going to use the same kind of Pixar auteur directors over and over again, those being Pete Bird, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter. Or Pete Docter. I'm like, sure, but you guys have been saying this for like forever, and maybe actually do it, because they don't ever talk about the other directors or anything like that. They just kind of just go, we're going to embrace new directors, and I go, could you talk about them in interviews? And they're like, not really. So I don't feel like there's any directors that have really stuck out for anyone. So I'm like, of course you're going to have to do that, but maybe like actually do that. And also buy up, like, why, don't like, why isn't Pixar bought off Gendy? I just don't understand it. Did I say Pete Bird? Well, anyway, I meant Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton, and Brad Bird. But and Brad Bird and Andrew Stanton haven't made anything in a while. Well, I guess those two have made sequels, but I always forget about the Pixar sequels. So next up, all right, so the Snyder Cut. This was trending on Twitter. It was huge. It was everywhere. Because Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck talked about both tweeted hashtag release the Snyder Cut. Also the guy who played Cyborg, but I mean, what else has he got to do? I guess I don't really know anything about them. But so they yeah. Okay. Let me drink some water. The audio thing kind of fucked me up. All right. So, Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot both tweeted hashtag release the Snyder Cut, as well as the guy who plays Cyborg. And in this, they got release the Snyder Cut trending, and there's all this discussion if HBO Max would actually do release the Snyder Cut. And a lot of people have said, they did do the Richard Donner cut back in the day. They did do all these other things to appease things that didn't happen in DC movies. Why wouldn't they? And since HBO Max, by the way, doesn't really have a huge movie premiere, a big premiere like Disney Plus did with The Mandalorian, it would very much help them. And since the Snyder Cut is such a meme at this point, wouldn't it help them? There's been no official word, and everyone at Warner Brothers is like, yeah, we're not doing that. We saw the Snyder Cut, and they didn't say it sucked, but I mean, they're basically saying that. I think, to be honest, like, if you're launching HBO Max, right now I want to talk about all the Cartoon Network stuff, but a lot of the people who cover a lot of movie news do more superhero things and stuff. And although I would love for them to talk about Infinity Train Book 2, which yes, I will get to that shortly, and other awesome stuff, they most likely need something like that to get a lot of interest. And the Snyder Cut, just regardless of quality, would make a lot of people sign up or at least do free trials just to be like, hey, I finally saw the Snyder Cut and stuff. It'd be like a joke. People would have a party, things like that. Or maybe it's really good, but as someone who wanted them to release the Donner Cut back in the day, that didn't really work out. and I think oftentimes these things become huge campaigns, and then they finally get the thing, and they're like, oh, that's the thing? Oh, fuck. Damn. That sucks. I don't really know what to do at this point. But anyway, what someone's saying, did you hear about South Park? Space Ghost, please elaborate. But I think Warner Brothers could. Financially, it would make sense. And since streaming services cost so much anyway, you could do the whatever work needs to be done. Apparently, it's mostly done, if that's true. I sort of think Warner's could go either way, but because Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot like drummed up support for it, but as Ben Affleck is going more towards Disney and sort of leaving Warner Brothers, of course he doesn't really give a shit. And then Gal Gadot probably is the only one who holds any sort of weight at that studio anyway. I talked about South Park last week, or whenever that was, but I did talk about it before. Space Ghost. All right, so next up is the Owl House trailer that came out a couple days ago, I guess. This has been like a very hyped up show in the cartoon community. It had a nice panel at New York Comic Con and all that stuff. And everyone's been talking about it. You know what? I'm not really going to talk about Steven Universe Future Next Animation because I didn't see that, unfortunately. I'm not really up on Steven Universe, to be honest, so I should probably have done that. So I don't know. I could watch it live if you guys want me to. Do you want me to do that? If I get like, I don't know, a super chat and a bunch of things on here, I'll do it before Infinity Train, I guess. If you guys really want me to watch Steven Universe Future trailer. All right. So, but at least, yeah. Anyway, so the Owl, but I'm gonna finish Owl House first. Owl House trailer, which for some reason I kept thinking this was called Owl City. And I don't know that band at all. I kept searching Owl City for some reason, even though I don't know why. Also, Owl House seems like Outhouse to me. Anyway, it looks really cool. It looks like both post Adventure Time and post, I would say, She-Ra in a lot of ways. I really liked it. It looked cool. I think it's something I'd probably watch with Sophie when it premieres on Disney Channel. I'm curious though, like, what's going on with Disney Channel and their premieres, because like they have Rocketeer, but is like, wouldn't that all be better on Disney Plus? Like, they don't seem to be as all in on the streaming services. They're still like promoting these terrestrial, I guess, channels or whatever, and that being one of them. I really don't understand that, but I think it could be cool. It looks really cool. I'm really into the Owl House trailer that I saw. It looks like a crazy weird world, but it looks very now in animation, and but it also looks really cool and fun. It looks like kind of that weird fantasy kind of comic that you'd find in the 80s. It seems like from that, and like even Infinity Train, we have all this like weird sci-fi from the 80s constantly happening right now. But I really liked Owl House. It does look like just a very now cartoon. I liked like her witch friend and everything like that, and this whole idea of going into this fantasy world feels sort of C.S. Lewis-y in a lot of ways, but kind of like quirky in that Adventure Time vein, and I thought that looked really cool to me. Yeah, is the Steven Universe, man, I didn't, what's funny, I don't, because I'm always like, oh yeah, that happened, that's the Roundtables thing, but I guess you guys want me to talk about it. I don't know. It didn't, I don't know, but anyway, so, I like Ryan Walterson's Owl House in the middle of our street stuff. That's funny. All right, so next up, a bunch of Infinity Train news. So, if you've been watching the stream regularly, and my my videos and stuff like that, you know I've been reviewing all of the Infinity Train shorts, or the train documentaries that 1-1 has been hosting. And everyone said that we're going to be, it's leading or going to unlock a season 2 trailer. I guess I don't know how it unlocked it on the thing or whatever. I was watching it on their site, but maybe it unlocks it on the app. I don't know. Regardless, I saw the trailer on Reddit because someone posted it on there. But now apparently first, Owen Dennis on Twitter said that the first season of Infinity Train is called Book 1, and the second season of Infinity Train is Book 2. And I'm surprised we got a trailer, like a 2-minute long trailer, like with a lot of stuff, and a new passenger called Jessie, who's going to be followed around by the kind of mirror version of Tulip. I've heard her called Slither. What was her name? I forget what the mirror version of her is, which is kind of cool because you sort of have Tulip, but it's like not exactly Tulip because she sort of rejected that identity, the mirror version of her. I like that. The deer thing that was in the background of, you saw the deer kind of doorways, and you saw the deer in Coming Soon in the movie theater, and you saw the deer in the mine cart car. And all that stuff. You don't actually see 1-1 in the trailer, interesting enough. But it's this new character called Jessie. We know nothing about him other than he has it's MT. Sorry, everybody. It's MT. I wonder if Owen Dennis watched Monster Trucks. I don't know. Yeah, this new character, Jessie, he has like kind of a sort of a Letterman's jacket or something. I'm assuming from the look of him, maybe he's a jock. I literally know nothing about him other than his name, and he has an iPhone with pictures of his family, who I'm assuming he loves, or he upset in some way, or his parents are getting divorced, and so he needs to, get over that possibly. I don't know if divorce is a big thing with them. Clearly family and missing your family. Owen Dennis also revealed that Tulip had been gone for 5 months, which makes me go, what? But they talk about it in such an off way. Like I often thought at the end of Infinity Train, like she had like gone in a time loop and like no time had passed, but he said there'd been 5 months, so there is a certain amount of time that these passengers are gone apparently. But I had a theory, like, and I never made a video or talked about it, that at the end it felt like she possibly could have like gone back in time and like saved her parents' marriage or something, or at least got them better organized. I don't know, but that didn't happen obviously, but or isn't true. But Infinity Train 2 looks cool. You get the only train documentary you get any peek of is the kaiju car, which was cool. I kind of wish they had more things from it in there. I'm curious how many of the train documentaries they're going to use. I hope they don't do too many, but they have some. I think that would be cool. But I'd also, you saw a lot more different train cars, and you see that the MT is being followed around by these kind of like these kind of the two guys from that episode of Infinity Train. I really like Infinity Train. This does again feel like a weird 80s sci-fi cult thing that was like a little too brainy, that only 14-year-olds really got into, and I still really like that about it. It feels like older Doctor Who, which when we interviewed Owen Dennis on Pizza Party, we very much agreed with me on that, and he's a Doctor Who fan, and everyone seems to really love this show. So I'm excited for it. No idea when it's coming out. Everyone says it's going to HBO Max. That would be May if it's a launch title. But we really don't know. I sort of think, and we have no date, and the only reason we got it, I don't know if I mentioned that the Friday was the day that Tulip gets on the Infinity Train. So actually Infinity Train took place in the future when we saw it, oddly enough. But and it was a weekend camp, which I've never heard of that. I kind of didn't buy that, but I guess it makes sense. But I think but I'm excited for this new chapter. I like how it's like totally different. The deer thing, I'm really curious because he appears to have like weird powers or something, and he can move his head all around and all this stuff. So I'm really curious what's going on with that. But I'm very excited for book 2. I guess we're going to refer to them as books now, and what 1-1's role is, and like who the conductor is, or maybe this is just a separate thing in all the different cars, and he has to like get his number down and everything like like that. So, and what his problem is. Like, maybe it's not divorce, maybe it's something else, and I think that would be interesting. Oh, you know what? I should put the shark. Hold on. There we go. That's better. All right. So, Disney Plus. As I've had this service, I have noticed things I like about it, which are pretty much the same things, and more things I don't like about it. And as like the out of order thing, kind of doesn't really... the out of order episode thing still bugs me, particularly with like Gravity Falls and DuckTales, which are shows that you really should watch in order. So that's obnoxious because it's like not for binging in a lot of ways. Although I love The Mandalorian, that's been great. I'm going to talk about episode 3 later in the show. But then towards the end of the show, but then also it's like X-Men season 3 is the Dark Phoenix saga. So you're like, that you absolutely need to watch in a certain order, and it's going to screw it all up. So like that stinks. The other things is like the Forky show, which I've tweeted about this, but Sophie is really into the Forky show. She loves the Forky show. It's you know, but at the same time, it's just a series of shorts on there. It's not given a show distinction, which is weird because it has a theme song and is formatted like a show, but for whatever weird reason, they don't treat it like a show on the service. How many Mickey Mouse shorts? I don't even know. We actually watched one tonight after we watched Frozen, which was fun. Like the one where he's a magician. That was a lot of fun, but it just seems a lot of not great clarity with the service. I have put things on my watch list that I am worried about, like, won't find later because they're not, you know, Endgame or Lady and the Tramp or something, which I haven't watched, and maybe I won't. I don't know. But it just feels like they could have done a lot more to organize it. It feels like the tabs they have, there should be more of. And then at the same time, they announced that Corey in the House, The Weekenders, and Jake Long are scheduled to come out on Disney Plus. But like schedules, what schedule? What's the date? Like that was an official thing. They're like, they're scheduled to come out, and I'm like, okay, guys, I don't know. Disney Plus needs to kind of get their shit a little better together, because like, give us a date or say we're thinking about it, but like they're just so vague about so many things. I find it really kind of upsetting. So, Aardman and Netflix. There's two big Aardman news with Netflix, which oddly, I don't know why this wasn't a together story, but like, first there was The Guardian, then IndieWire, but it seems that, sorry, I keep dropping stuff in my hands. Okay, so Aardman has signed a deal with Netflix, both for their new movie, which is going to be called, oh man, I had it right there. I think it's their new movie, which is going to be called Robin, is going to be on Netflix as the new movie that's in development. But then you have the movie that that we already knew about, which was Shaun the Sheep 2, Farmageddon, which we never really had a date on. They kind of were like, I don't know, December, or like they sort of, we didn't get it really official, and it seemed a little fishy. And that's also going to be on Netflix. That's going to come out in 2020. And it seems like Netflix and Aardman are going to be working together, which is good, because I love Aardman and I hope they do better than they're currently doing, which isn't really great, frankly. And Netflix is a perfect buffer for them. I mean, I think stop motion animation earlier in the 2010s was doing really well. In 2012, we got 3 stop motion animated features in mainstream theaters with Frankenweenie, Paranorman, and was it 3? Oh, and the Aardman movie, The Pirates. So I really hope Robin is a special. What are you talking about? Robin's not a special. Hey, Niji Kichu's here. Before I look into that nonsense, I really thought, I don't know. Okay. All right, hold on. Niji Kichu, fun fact. The Mandalorian, the Camtano, is based on an... Oh, yes, I've heard about this. I just was hearing about this. The Mandalorian, the Camtano, is based on an ice cream maker, and the name comes from a video game of a girl who pronounces ice cream as Camtano. I didn't know that. Yeah, so that, okay, that, first off, thank you for bringing that up. Cheers to you, Niji Kichu. The ice cream maker thing that has the money in it in the most recent Mandalorian, I will talk about this because this excites me, and then I'll go back to Aardman. Was a character who's leaving Cloud City had this thing, which was just an ice cream maker, and people apparently would make fun of it. And at Star Wars conventions, they'd actually like have the running of the certain character who carried it, and they had all these things with it, and it was a big joke kind of thing. And it's interesting that Jon Favreau has made it canon and made it into kind of a safe. And apparently they made it later in canon that he was carrying data or something. But Jon Favreau had the Life Day reference in the first episode of Mandalorian. Now this, he's clearly like messing with the jokes of Star Wars, which I find really interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't, on the Guardian article, it does not say, it says film, and, oh, okay, alright, I see how that got confusing, because they put it later in the stupid thing. Alright, Ryan, you're right. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. Robin will still be on Netflix, and that they're not going to be working with the BBC as much in later Wallace and Gromit specials and other specials. With Aardman, they're going to be working with Netflix because they just have admitted several times the money isn't really there and they want to protect themselves. I'm surprised Laika hasn't made a deal like this with another streaming service, and if Netflix has some success with this, is able to get some Oscar nominations or something like that through Aardman, I'd expect either HBO Max or maybe Hulu, well, I guess Disney, but they have a stop motion studio. They don't use it anymore. So I guess somebody might try to pick them up at some point, but I think it's very good for Aardman because this will help them continue to exist after they've had this sort of corporate restructuring and all those things. But anyway, I think that should be sort of cool, I think, with Aardman, and it gives them a better future. And I've gotten Sophie into Aardman recently, so I'm glad they will actually be around past this. I didn't see their last movie, but I'm excited for Shaun the Sheep 2 because I like Shaun the Sheep 1. I should have seen their previous film, which I'm sure we all forgot the name of. But yeah, I don't think we'll get any more Wallace and Gromit. You're probably right, but I hope they are able to develop more things and continue in the future because I like seeing stop motion stuff, particularly from Aardman. The next thing, and this just came out today, it was like yesterday, sort of, but it wasn't like a big deal at first, and I saw it bubbling more today, and that is Channing Tatum and Roy Lee are adapting Sam Keith's The Maxx for the big screen. Now, Channing Tatum has been lining up projects because he obviously hasn't been in a movie since like Kingsman 2 or something. Or was Logan Lucky? Logan Lucky was like before King. Yeah, he's like kind of barely in anything, and I think I know he's lining up projects. He's trying to show, hey, Channing Tatum is back. And apparently The Maxx is one he's at least producing. No one said like with an eye to star in it or what their vision is for this. There's no director attached. It's one of the weirder comic book things to adapt. And I am surprised more Image stuff hasn't been announced for feature films because that is was such a popular thing back in the day. Like if you were reading comics in the 90s, Image was huge. And I know they've been talking about things like I know they've been talking about doing a Spawn movie, but the fact that there isn't a Wildcats movie in development is a little surprising to me. It's probably because none of that stuff aged very well. But the Maxx pretty much has. I've been wanting to review the animated series for a long time. How would you? I have a super chat from Connor Johnson saying, "How would you describe The Handmaid's Tale?" I would describe it as sad, disturbing, and first off, cheers to you, Connor Johnson. Thank you for the super chat. Sad, disturbing, and also sadly closer to reality than I'd like to believe. I am definitely behind on that show, but I love that show. I'm also depressed by that show. I also feel like that the eventuality of that show scares me. So I guess that's how I would describe The Handmaid's Tale. I'm not sure why you wanted that just then, but we got it. Yes, but Channing Tatum has really been out of the mix for a while. I know he was in Smallfoot and other animated stuff, but in terms of like doing, I guess Smallfoot was his last real big push, but doing a voice in an animated film, if you're like a big star, doesn't really up your profile necessarily. Especially like, I don't think anyone like talks about Smallfoot. It wasn't like Frozen or like, I think the Disney stuff helps you. I think if your thing's not like a cultural hit, it doesn't really matter for you as an actor. But I find this a really weird idea that any star would want to do the Maxx, and it like interests me that they want to do it. That interests me a lot because I'm a big fan of the show The Maxx, not as much the comic. Like I read the comic, I don't have as many memories of the comic, but I love the show. And apparently it was an Annie Award winning for at the time, which it is good enough for that, but it's like the 90s was like fiercely competitive, which shows you how good, and there's so much good stuff, how good the Maxx show is. I really need to review that at some point. But I would say this is one of the more interesting ideas I've heard. I think Channing Tatum actually might do a good Maxx, but here's the thing: is like this isn't a franchise thing. Like I don't know the comics very well, but there's not a ton to that. So maybe if this is just one movie, and maybe because Disney clearly is not going to make Gambit, despite like whoever says what, I just don't. If it's happening, it's not happening anytime soon. I'm going to tell you that right now. So I think maybe he's like, I need to do a comic book movie to stay relevant. Why don't I do a cool, interesting comic book movie? And I think comic book movies need to be stranger anyway, and the Maxx could definitely push you in that region. So I'm sort of for this, but I want to hear director. I want to know who's starring in it. If it's Channing Tatum, I imagine it probably is. Who's writing it, things like that. But all we know is that they're producing it and possibly like adapting it. But I'm sure like they'll get a real screenwriter at some point. And yeah, a couple of people. Yeah, he was going to be in Gambit, but that didn't happen. But anyway, I am surprised Image, which has had very animated series and a lot of success on TV, obviously Walking Dead and the Spawn shows and things of that nature, but hasn't really broken out in movies other than the Spawn movie and maybe some other obscure title I don't know about. But I'd be curious to do that. Maybe, Bone was temporarily an Image title, so... all right, so the next thing is Universal is trying to kind of bring back the Universal monsters in interesting ways. We saw that with... Oh, I need to plug in my computer. So I wonder if that's why the audio is weird, because that's curious. Anyway, sorry about the audio, guys. I really can't fix it midstream, so apologies. So the character of Renfield from Dracula, who's Dracula's assistant, is going to have a movie focused on him, directed by Dexter Fletcher, who previously kind of helped fix, I guess, even though that movie wasn't great, Bohemian Rhapsody, and direct Rocketman, and he's going to do this Renfield movie. I think that sounds really cool, of doing like the assistant of Dracula, particularly because in our age of like toxic, workplaces and stuff, what could be a more toxic workplace than being a slave to Dracula? You know what I mean? I think that could be a cool movie. I don't know who's going to star in it or if it's going to be modern or anything like that. But Dexter Fletcher showed like he can be a very great stylist. He could be a really great stylist if he wants to. So I think that could be cool. Okay. Let's see. What should we talk about next? All right, hold on. Are we okay? Yeah, the audio is a little delayed. That's weird. Why? That's weird. I don't have a good reason for that. Anyway, no, Dracula Untold is not canon. All right. What's the Mars Ravello comics? I'm curious about that. Anyway, I'm interested in that. Nijikichu, please let me know. So apparently the Wes Craven estate is going to be getting back the rights to Freddy Krueger. Not much to say about that other than Mike Flanagan, who directed Dr. Sleep, said on Twitter that he has a take on it and he'd like to pitch that. So I'm curious what's going to happen with Nightmare on Elm Street, but expect something to happen and some deal to be made coming up. Now, this is going to be a kind of a big topic, I guess. So I'm going to drink some water here. Is the U.S. first Paramount decree being changed and taken away. And this whole idea of this famous court case from the 40s of studios not being able to own theaters and not being able to do a thing called block booking, where they're basically like, you can't play this big movie unless you also play this B movie at the same time. And they're going to, the Justice Department wants to take away those provisions, saying that like the movie industry has changed pretty drastically since 1940s, which like, yeah, that's true. But here's the thing. One, the movie studio, all right, so I want to say, I don't think they're going to buy up AMC or Regal or whatever movie chain is in your area, or Bowtie has been very scared by this. I really don't think they're going to do that. I really don't think that's a threat that you should really look out for. But there are certain things about this that I think people don't fully understand. The block booking thing, people will be like, it'd be horrible if block booking happens. Like if a studio made theaters like play one movie to play another one. Disney like does that. That's like how good Dinosaur got in so many theaters. Nobody thought that was going to do well, but because they had Force Awakens coming out, they could like push that. They'd be like, hey, if you want Force Awakens, this has to play in this amount of theaters. It pretty much happens. They just found a new way to do it. So the other thing is like these studios don't want to gobble up a theater chain because they would lose other regions from another corporation buying up a thing. And all these studios have now invested all this in streaming. So what really could happen is, first off, if they're going to change things drastically, it's going to take a lot of time to do that and a lot of money. And it's not something they're going to be able to do with HBO Max launching and Disney Plus launching to like do something like that, unless they're just going to try to go bankrupt. It's just financially just is not possible. But what can happen is everyone's saying Netflix is probably going to open theaters. I wouldn't say nationwide. I would say like New York, LA have a theater each. So they can say like, hey, we played your movie in our Netflix theater and those theaters are great. And if you have a certain Netflix account, you can go there for free or you can pay and all that stuff. And they're basically what's called four-walling a movie and just play it in there. Or what I could see happening is, and Brad Bird's brought this up on his Twitter, is that people have kind of gotten mad at him, but I sort of understand what his point is. Really, is that one is that when you had the studios owning movie theaters, they had single screen theaters, and they were like these pristine, beautiful things because they're making so much money off of them, and they were controlling so many of the profits, and that's true. And he also brought up the Apple, what happened with Steve Jobs, why he opened Apple stores is because he hated how CompUSA was displaying his computers. So what could happen is this. Disney could open single screen theaters in major cities and basically be like, hey, this weekend, the weekend before the big weekend that we have picked out, that we have that will go on theaters nationwide, the weekend before or 2 days before, something like that, we're going to play Frozen 2. If you want to see Frozen 2 early and have a pristinely beautiful single screen theater, huge theater, amazing sound, you come see Frozen 2 here. You see it early. Tell your friends, I've already seen Frozen 2. Fuck you guys, going to see it at your Podunk Regal or whatever. That will in turn make Regal and AMC actually up their game because they're like, oh crap, Disney's got like this amazing laser projection theater over downtown. They're stealing all our business for Frozen 2. So what I honestly think will happen, you'll have these more like the El Capitan in California, where you'll have companies having big presentation spaces, and they might open a week early there or something, which the El Capitan has done before. That's not actually that rare. They haven't done it in a while. They haven't done it in a while, but they could do it now if they wanted to, but it doesn't seem like no movie studio has even looked into doing anything with this, and apparently none of them are really pushing it that much other than Netflix, who probably will own some theaters. But the other thing about owning a theater for Netflix is like Disney could do that because Disney has big movies, but to like own a theater chain and only play your movies, movie studios don't make enough stuff like they did in the 30s and 40s to facilitate something like that. So the whole idea of like, oh no, a movie studio would do that, like Netflix is the only studio in Hollywood who makes enough product to fill a theater constantly. So the whole idea everyone has of like these studios doing that is implausible. And the other thing about that is like they're not going to buy up every AMC and be like, we're only playing Netflix movies, because financially you're not going to go to those theaters. So the whole way theater works and theatrical distribution and dates, there is absolutely no way they can just take everything off the table. They can take everything off the table and change it right now, because it would just be too hard to do and the whole industry would collapse. And obviously they don't want that, because they're the movie industry and they sort of want their industry to survive. I can see it being adapted in those sort of ways. And also the thing with block booking is block booking let other filmmakers happen, because studios would make smaller budgeted movies. That's one of the things I can see happening from this, is you could see smaller budget movies happening, because they're like, oh, hey, you have to play this smaller budget movie because you got this other one, and they could use that to develop new talent. That's the only thing I can see them honestly doing. But I don't think anything's really going to change. I don't think Disney can really do that much, because they sort of don't want to like lose another chain because they bought one chain. And apparently most of these studios are like, I'm stepping out until the streaming thing clears itself. So I think at most, if this really does happen, and it hasn't happened yet, we won't see any changes till Disney Plus is in profits and everything like that. So that's the deal. All right. But I think Netflix, you could see a multiplex run by Netflix, and they could do things like that. But it would still be hard, even a single screen for Disney, because that means they'd have to have product in there, or be like, we're going to play old movies now? I don't know, which they don't even like to do. So like they would really have to rethink everything, is what I'm saying. I'm sorry if that was long. I wanted to talk about that. So Captain Marvel, I think we sort of already knew that. But I think we already sort of know this about Avengers 2, but apparently they did shoot a stand-in, in which I think people knew this. They did shoot a stand-in for Avengers Age of Ultron for Captain Marvel to go in there. They claimed to not have her cast at the time, but they were seriously considering putting Captain Marvel in this. There seems to be like this debate over whether Joss Whedon was okay with it, or Joss Whedon was pushing this, or what was going on with that. But there was apparently there was a real plan. Like they even shot the thing to put Captain Marvel in Avengers Age of Ultron. That was on their like big box set or something. Next up, sorry that I know no one's done a super chat. I'm sorry I just ranted. I like the Coco short idea, Ryan. That's cute. I just need a Red Bull. I'm sorry. Let's keep the... Oh! I should have just waited for you, Niji Kichu. Alright. Fun fact. Edgar Wright filmed both tracking shots in Shaun of the Dead on the first day in a single day to shut up the higher-ups who doubted his skills. That's cool. You should read an interview on Edgar Wright, Niji Kichu, and everyone watching. There's like so many interesting, his life in British TV before he did Shaun of the Dead. He was like a really cool TV director. He worked for like French and Saunders. Obviously had Spaced. You should see Spaced. That is a great show. But like he did so much. He had a lot. He was like kind of the wonderkind at the time. But like that shows why he's so smart. Because that's cool. That's cool. Anyway, I'll have another Red Bull for you, Niji Kichu. Thank you very much for the super chat. You were always appreciating. You always have a good fun. I'm still thinking about that Barney thing from last week. Jesus. I told someone that, and they were like, "No." I was like, "Well, what's his job?" And they're like, "I don't know." Funny. So another treat, I guess. 2 trailers in a row, and then Charlie's Angels, I guess. Another Cats trailer came out. I don't think this is as mind-boggling because we sort of know what it's going to look like. But we did get a Cats trailer, and it looks just as big of a mess, but it looks like a fun mess. Like, I sort of think this is going to be like The Greatest Showman, where everyone's like, that's so stupid, ha, 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 and then we're all going to go. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of alcohol consumed. The Alamo Drafthouse and the Nighthawk in Brooklyn and all the theaters that serve alcohol are going to have sold-out shows. This thing is going to be a monster. And if... You just saw Niji Kichu just saw Shaun of the Dead for the first time. Good for you, but damn, I'm surprised. But that's good for you. I think this sort of reminded us of the Cats' ridiculousness. I don't think it. I think we're all talking about the Sonic trailer. Actually, I wanted to talk about, now that Ryan Walterson brought up the Sonic trailer thing. The Sonic trailer overestimation by, was it Trefon or Trefon, whatever his name was. that like became such a laughing stock around film Twitter because he's so overestimated, and a lot of the more film professionals were like, "There's no way it cost that much." But I think they're saying about 8 million. He was saying like 40 million. It was just such a mass miscalculation. Also, I think Cats. The difference between Cats and Sonic is the nerds Cats movie, and Cats is the mainstream Sonic movie in terms of laughability. Did that make sense? Who cares? We're moving on. The Call of the Wild trailer from Chris Sanders, who previously was with Dean Deblos, who did the first How to Train Your Dragon together and Lilo and Stitch together, and then they kind of split off. I'm not sure if there's... It didn't seem like... I've never heard of Bad Blood, but they don't work together anymore. And Dean Deblos did the other two How to Train Your Dragons, and Chris Sanders did The Croods, and he hasn't done anything really since this Call of the Wild movie with Harrison Ford. I didn't think this looked good. I get what he's doing, because here's the thing with Call of the Wild. There's never been a really great movie done because you can't. It's mainly through the perspective of a dog, and they made one in the 30s, which is mainly with Clark Gable and Loretta Young, and there was some really creepy, gross things that happened between those two on the set of that movie, but that's beside the point. But I've reviewed that movie. You can check out that review now if you want, of that Call of the Wild. But like, they basically had to go like way off book anytime they adapted it. So there's actually a reason to adapt it. Like, I would actually say, yeah, that makes sense you're doing it, but that trailer looked like kind of bad. So I don't know. We'll see about that. I'm kind of curious about it, because I'm like, yeah, I totally get why you'd want to do an adaptation of that, but it just doesn't look great. And I feel bad for Chris Sanders, because I like him, but maybe like Dean Deblos was the better of that collaboration. But this is also going to live action. I know Dean Deblos also wants to go to live action. He has 2 live action things set up with the Micronauts and Treasure Island. So and he's getting all the acclaim. It feels like because of visually what was so interesting about those 2 sequels, I think really got people interested in him as a filmmaker, and I don't think Chris Sanders got to have that luxury. He got sort of left in the dust. So I hope this doesn't turn out to be as bad as it looks like it is. But hey, the first How to Train Your Dragon trailer was notoriously very bad. So I really didn't like that trailer, and then I almost didn't see it, which would have really made me sad. Charlie's Angels bombed last weekend, and it's continued bombing while it's still in theaters. And there's been a lot of like, Elizabeth Moss said some things which she didn't say after the movie bombed. She said at the press junket. So anyone thinking she said that is like a way to like, it seems to be people have taken this quote and somehow made it to be about the movie bombing. It was a dumb thing to say, because she said like, we don't want that cliche of people saying men won't see that men won't see action movies, and men won't see action movies starring women. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, but I don't think that's true at all. And I think the real problem the problem with this movie, this Charlie's Angels version, has always had, is one, it's not that big of a property, and because when the one that came out with Drew Barrymore and Cameron Diaz, like the whole idea of Elizabeth Banks. I'm sorry, Ryan. Sorry. Elizabeth Banks. I don't know why I said Elizabeth Moss. Sorry about that. So Elizabeth Banks, she said that quote and everything like that. But so when the Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore one came out, people would do like that pose with the guns. Like, I remember girls in my high school yearbook would do that and stuff. So the thing, and it was a bigger property, and it was syndicated on TV a lot more. So it was kind of more of an interesting IP. And you had 2 movie stars who could open movies. This had Kristen Stewart, who's like not, she's a good actress, no problems there, but she just can't open a movie. And I know we're in more of a concept time or an IP time than a movie star time. But at the same point, like, if they originally really wanted Emma Stone, Jennifer Lawrence, and Margot Robbie. If they had been in this, I could have seen this working. But I also like, why was this coming out in November? Like, you didn't have 2 huge movie stars in it. It should have come out at a weaker time, so probably could have done better. The studio even cut its promotion in half. But Elizabeth Banks, it's sad. I don't really like her as a director. I didn't really have any interest in seeing this. And it seems like Sony, this and Men in Black International, it hasn't been a great year, although apparently like this isn't as big of a bomb for them and they're fine. But the beginning of November had a lot of bombs, but this is the one I never really expected much from. I'm just surprised that I don't know. I think they shouldn't have even named it Charlie's Angels. It should have been like a different thing. And also the weekend Disney Plus came out, and they didn't really understand the demo they were going for, which was young women who didn't really understand who Charlie's Angels was. It seems like a lot of these properties came out, they had weird dates, like Terminator should have come out in the summer, Dr. Sleep should have come out a month before, and Charlie's Angels should have come out in January or something. And they just like, they're putting them all out in November and hoping for the best is like a stupid idea. And this whole IP crazy time, like do what Warner's is doing with Banana Splits and make it like there's a concept, like all these YouTube peoples and all these people like cartoons, we don't even watch the Banana Splits and we're excited to see this movie. Like there's no real excitement for it and there's no real need. And if once you didn't get a movie star, they should have just jumped ship on this or like bumped the budget down, not made this a studio priority. It was their own fault. Sorry, I feel like there's a lot of me ranting this week. Apologies for that. Okay. Niji Kichu. I noticed Niji Kichu becomes like the Aardman sometimes. So Noah Hawley is going to direct the 4th Star Trek movie. That originally was going to be with another director, but that kind of fell apart. And it was going to have Chris Hemsworth in it with Chris Pine. We don't know if this is going to be that take, but everyone's assuming that it is not going to be the one with Chris Hemsworth, who played Kirk's father in the original 2009 Star Trek movie. We really don't know much, and even though a lot of people have complained that Noah Hawley just had a bomb, and it's kind of not cool that they were going to have their first female director for Star Trek, at least a movie director, and that they decided not to do that. So who knows what's going to happen with this? A lot of people are like, why are we still going on with this franchise? And I kind of agree. Like why, it's like, are we still trying with this? Because it feels like it had 3 movies and the 2 sequels didn't really turn out the way they wanted to, and they got delayed, and it's just like, there's too much nonsense with the Star Trek thing. I do sort of think they should like maybe either give it a rest or like, I've always wondered, are they ever going to do the like a reboot of Next Generation? Because that seems to hold a lot more water with the current time than the original series. I don't know. I think people would be interested in that, but I don't know who you would cast, and I feel like you would run into a lot of problems with that. Or actually make a good Next Generation movie, which they never really did, let's be honest. So that would have been a cooler idea. I think there's like a lot of things you could do with Star Trek, and I know Paramount really wants that property to do well, especially with Star Trek doing so much with CBS All Access. And I get that Noah Hawley's TV work is great. It's just like, I think in film, he just had that bomb with Lucy in the Sky. I think people were a little like down on him doing it, and they're like, well, maybe it'll work, but I don't know. I kind of think it's more just like this property is not happening. So one of the weirder stories, I have 2 weirder stories in a row, and then Star Wars, and then all this stuff. Sorry, let me get some water here. So, I forget which day it was this week, but we heard about a Joker sequel, which makes sense. This thing made $1 billion. And it seemed Hollywood Reporter, which is, by the way, I always talk about on here, on Twitter, or if you see me in real life, about always going for a news source that's like reputable, like Hollywood Reporter usually is, or Deadline or Variety or stuff like that. They usually know the right people to call to make sure it's fact checked and everything like that. And people like, I know, was it comicbook.com or whatever, they always like kind of get a little fast and loose with stuff, or they like don't have the best connections. I'm not trying to be like the richer publications get all the views and everything. I'm not trying to support them more than the smaller guys, but it's usually like, if it's a story that you're not sure about, it's you usually wait till they cover it, because they can back it up, and they won't run it until they can really show that they know what's going on. But so they announced this story about how Todd Phillips came in the Monday after the Joker had opened, wanted to make a sequel, and asked for kind of his own label of DC movies where he could make DC villain movies, and he was going to make another supervillain origin story as well. And his own label thing didn't happen, but apparently he was going to make a Joker sequel and this other thing. The thing is, then it was just dismissed by both Todd Phillips and by basically the studio. So it sounds like it didn't happen. I've heard like, especially a Lex Luthor origin movie is very much in development. Supposedly it's like a Citizen Kane take or something like that. which I keep hearing, but that seems to be more of a rumor. Maybe there's some truth to that rumor, but it's still a rumor. But the Joker 2, I think the main reason that might not happen is because Joaquin Phoenix didn't do Doctor Strange. He was originally going to be Doctor Strange, and he got very close to signing because of all the sequels and everything like that. And Joaquin seemed to only want to do one movie. So I think they probably, if maybe this is true, and they're like, yo, don't like blow up our shit. We're trying to get Joaquin to sign on to this. And like, you're acting like it's a done deal, and it's very much not, because if they can't get Joaquin, why do it, frankly? So I just don't think, I think mainly, I do think they possibly could have just backtracked when Joaquin's people are like, yo, this deal isn't done, and maybe it won't get done now because you're going off and telling people this shit, which could happen because I do sort of trust Hollywood Reporter a little bit, but at the same time, it's sort of interesting to see Hollywood Reporter like fall down like that. It's like doesn't happen very often. However, I did actually think about like, well, what would the second Joker even be? And all these people have these crazy ideas like he should be a criminal mastermind, all this stuff. Apparently, people are saying the first one, like I saw it, it wasn't the biggest impact for me, and I don't really think this film needs a sequel. But obviously, Warner Brothers is going to spend as much money as they possibly can to make that happen, since they made so much money on it. You could pay Joaquin $30 million. Keep the budget around the same and still make a lot of profit off of it. It's like a lot cheaper. And hey, what if he gets an Oscar? I think they're maybe probably going to up the Oscar campaign like crazy so they can like win Joaquin over him. Because by the way, Joaquin Phoenix, despite being a very talented actor and having a ton of critical acclaim, has never won an Oscar. So I think that is something that they're probably going to use to get him to sign on to a sequel. But I want to talk about what would I do if I could make a Joker sequel. If someone was like, Jim, come up with a Joker sequel, and I'd be like, don't make one. They're like, yeah, fuck you, but we're going to pay you money, so come up with something. So I actually did think about this. I don't know why I had this idea. So if Joker takes place in the early 80s, I would have him, he eventually gets out in the mid-90s or so forth. Batman exists. I don't care if you get Pattinson. I don't care if you get someone else. And by the people keep saying Todd Phillips said he did talk to Joaquin about doing a sequel. Joaquin has talked about doing a sequel. So it is a possibility. They have talked about, like, they've kind of joked about it. But they have actually talked about it together apparently while they're doing press. So, but anyway, so in this, it's been many, like 10, 15 years later. So that would put it in the late 90s if it takes place in like 80, 82, 80. I don't know if anyone knows where this Joker movie takes place. But let's say we're taking place in the mid to late 90s. Batman has already happened. And the Joker, despite having a huge cult around him, has remained in a mental facility this entire time. One thing that happened during that time, and under this movie that I'm making up just now on the stream, in that time, is that there was an actual movie about the Joker and Batman. Now, this is only because Batman has become Gotham's savior, and the Joker and the Joker's cult or whatever represent kind of the evil in Gotham. Batman has taken down this cult many a time. He's never actually had to deal with the Joker because the Joker's been locked up. No one knows that he killed, Bruce Wayne's parents and all this stuff. But so there's been a movie made of Batman fighting the Joker. So the whole city knows there's like this tension between these two figures. And that movie, under my weird-ass idea, which came out years before, would be Tim Burton's Batman. So Tim Burton's Batman would be the movie within the movie of this movie. And so eventually, Joaquin, at the beginning of this movie, actually gets released. Like, they set this up somehow. I don't know. I'm spitballing here. He sets this up somehow. Thank you, Next Animation, 81. He gets out of the mental facility, and then he has to deal with the cult, who obviously takes him in. And the cult wants him to be this criminal mastermind because they built him up for like 10 years and all this stuff. And they kind of sort of realize that this guy is not a criminal mastermind and is like insane. And like they kind of like basically like make him into a figurehead for all of their sort of nonsense. But the Joker in this movie is just this hyped up thing that everyone through this movie and everything like that, and Batman wants to fight him despite like him not doing anything. And then you have the Batman movie and like this whole idea of the Joker, and he himself can't live up to the myth that he created. It's basically like society has made him into a thing, and he again cannot live up to society's standards. And there'll even be other supervillains who are inspired by him, like the Riddler, people like that, who are like, but you're the Joker. You were the one who inspired all of us to become these things. And he's like, yeah, I just don't. I'm just like this crazy guy. I just don't. I'm not. It doesn't. Sorry. And it's just like this weird movie of the Joker not being able to live up to himself. That's basically my idea if they were going to do a Joker 2. But by the way, I don't think they should do a Joker 2, so whatever. I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I haven't done one of those, like, if I wrote it kind of things. I thought that'd be fun. I don't know. Maybe everyone's thought that sucked. Every Joker needs a society. Thank you, Niji Kiju. All right, so next up, there's going to be a Chinatown prequel series on Netflix from David Fincher and Robert Towne. Robert Towne wrote the original, very celebrated, considered one of the greatest screenplays ever written for the original Chinatown, and David Fincher is David Fincher. I didn't mean that as an insult, but I don't really want this because why? I'm sort of like, couldn't they just work on a crime series? I don't know. I don't really think. I just don't get it. Like, why would you want this? But it's like the people working on it makes me curious, and I really am curious about his movie Mank, about Mankiewicz, who wrote whichever Mankiewicz it was who wrote Citizen Kane and everything like that. Sounds incredibly interesting and right up my alley. But I don't know about that prequel, but they're doing it, so there we go. So a bunch of Star Wars news this week, and I think because they've been doing interviews and things like that, and Kathleen Kennedy basically says she doesn't know what the next Star Wars movie will be. Supposedly, the rumor is from a Hollywood Reporter article, depending on how much faith we're putting in them this week, that we might get another one announced in January, which seems a little too soon to me, which will come out in 2022. And that Kathleen Kennedy will probably leave after Rise of Skywalker, like before May, some people are saying. I don't know about that, but she has been saying some weirder things that I think... I don't know. Also that she was installed by George Lucas and not by Disney, so there's kind of some friction because they're like, we kind of want our own person in here, not we want our own person in charge of Star Wars instead of someone George Lucas put in charge. Although Kathleen Kennedy is great and all that stuff. But she said something about, like, Star Wars movies aren't based on books or something like that. They have to develop them and write the stories, and they have a story department, all that stuff. Thing is about that is, like, yes, there are Star Wars books, but traditionally Star Wars movies are not based on Star Wars book source material. Like, that's never happened, and people got all upset, like, blah, 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 you forgot about the comics and the books and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but that's just, like, not how they make Star Wars movies. And Star Wars, I will say, if you research the development of any Star Wars movie, like, ever, it is really hard to make Star Wars movies. It is always horrible. So hats off to her for making so many in the quick amount of time she did. But there's like never been a Star Wars movie made where everyone was like, that was like fun and easy. We had a great time. Like it sounds like it is always hard. So maybe not Attack of the Clones, but who cares? But she has said that apparently Kevin Feige knew he could do Star Wars movies after he did Spider-Man for another studio, that he could kind of leave his offices or whatever at Marvel Studios and kind of go somewhere else and like work on a film with other people and things like that, and felt more confident about that doing the 2 Spider-Man movies. So if there's anything from the Spider-Man Sony deal, it's that Kevin Feige feels like he can branch out, and he has made some more statements because he's been doing comic book movies since the beginning of the sort of Marvel era with the first X-Men and things like that he might like to move on. Who knows if he'll do that with Star Wars or not, but apparently they do want to put in charge Dave Filoni and Michelle Rejwan, Rejwan, who work. Dave Filoni is obviously, a protege of George Lucas and worked on Clone Wars and all that stuff, and made his live action debut recently with the first episode of The Mandalorian. And Michelle is works at Lucasfilm, has apparently been doing a lot of great work. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen with that. Apparently Favreau is taking more of a leadership position as well. So we'll see what happens with Star Wars. But, Kathleen Kennedy's interview was interesting. J.J. Abrams was doing an interview saying it was disappointing to find out George Lucas thought... how George Lucas didn't really like Force Awakens, which doesn't surprise me. I'm curious what's going to happen with Star Wars, but with The Mandalorian, which seems to kind of hint at what would it be like if Dave Filoni was in there or was running things, or Jon Favreau, it kind of like gives me a little hope. So I'm kind of curious what's going to go on with the future of Star Wars. But I do sort of think I could see Kathleen Kennedy leaving. Part of me thinks she might stay on, but I sort of feel like it's kind of over at this point. And I'm curious what's going to happen. But it seems like Dave Filoni is definitely going to take a bigger piece of the pie and maybe direct more stuff. I kind of wouldn't mind if they kept it, because I've always heard great things. In any interview I've heard with the people who are really hardcore, like were trained by Lucas about Star Wars, like Filoni and all the story group, like it sounds like they know Star Wars very well. So I actually wouldn't mind to see a Star Wars movie presented by them. I'm curious about that. Apparently Mandalorian was a lot of that, and like Favreau's been doing so much fun with the fandom lately. Like, just we were talking what Niji Kichu brought up, that fun fact. I think that would be like an amazing thing. It would be a lot of fun too. Sorry, I hope I'm exciting you guys. I feel like wait, Dave Filoni dresses like a cowboy? That's cool. I don't know why I think that's cool, but it's cool. All right, so let's go through 2 more trailers. There's a trailer for Antebellum, which is from the producers of Get Out and all that. I kept seeing that Ryan Walterson met Dave Filoni. It sounds like he'd be super passionate. That's interesting. But Antebellum, who I know is from the producers of Get Out and Us, and I'm assuming Blumhouse, but maybe not. It stars Janelle Monáe, and it looks really cool. Something to do with like a plantation, and it's a horror movie, and maybe she gets put on a plantation, or she's haunted by the past of slavery. I really don't know what it's about. You don't need to tell me in the chat or anything. I just thought Antebellum is a really cool trailer. It's like a trailer that made me go like, oh cool, I want to see Antebellum, and I don't really want to know what is going on in it. It just like really piqued my interest, and I like Janelle Monáe. I hope she's starring in more movies because she's a really good actress. So the latest Irishman trailer, and I know like when you get all these trailers for a movie that's coming out, by the end you're like sort of sick of them, but let me tell you this one thing about the new Irishman trailer is it is really fucking good. It is the best Irishman trailer. If you're like on the fence about the Irishman or anything, definitely check it out. It is, if you're only going to see one Irishman trailer, see the latest one. Just go on YouTube, find the latest one. It was really great. I'll tweet it maybe tomorrow. I'll make sure it's set to tweet tomorrow because anyway. But I thought it was a really great trailer. I got to finally watch it right before the show, and I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy. So check that out. Next up, so I've heard this as a rumor, but it makes a lot of sense on Jeff Snyder's podcast called The Insnyder, which is a great podcast, and he usually has a lot of good insights. I know he's sort of a troll, but I don't know, I think he knows his shit. In at least in terms of movie news. I don't know if I agree with his movie taste, but anyway. Apparently he's heard that there's a rumor, by the way, that there's going to be a new David O. Russell movie called Amsterdam, and is going to star Christian Bale, Jamie Foxx, and Margot Robbie. J-Law apparently was previously going to maybe do it or something, and that didn't work out. I'm surprised J-Law, because Jennifer Lawrence, after Channing Tatum, it's like her and Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who we saw in the Sesame Street 50 special. He was good in that, but like he needs to make a comeback. Jennifer Lawrence needs to make a comeback. What are these people doing with their lives? I know she got married. I don't know what. I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt just had a bunch of kids or something. I don't really know what he's doing, but I might. Maybe he doesn't have kids. I have no clue, but he needs to come back. Like I'm sort of missing these people, and they're just like gonna get older and die. We're never gonna see him in a movie again. So that would suck. But yeah, I don't know what Amsterdam is about, but it's Christian Bale, Jamie Foxx, and Margot Robbie. That's the rumor that he revealed on his podcast, and it sounds interesting. I would like David O. Russell to come back, but I would sort of like Three Kings David O. Russell, not modern David O. Russell, but I think he's never coming back. So the Robocop Reboot, which is a script that was the original script for Robocop 2 that was then changed by Frank Miller, of all people, who wrote his Robocop 2. And I think Robocop as a franchise never really worked out. There was never a good sequel of Robocop. I never liked the sequels of Robocop, and I love the original. It's actually one of my favorite 80s movies, one of my favorite movies ever, and I love that movie, but the sequels suck. Like, I like the beginning of 3, like the first maybe 15 minutes of 3, when they kill his spoilers, I guess, when they kill his partner. That I've even talked to Robocop fans who are like hardcore fans, like, no, I love the beginning of 3. It's just like literally everything else. But yeah, they got the director of the film Little Monsters to be attached to this new Robocop reboot. I'm interested because it is a script that was supposed to be Robocop 2 that I know people like. And I think Robocop, I know people have been like, is this really a franchise and a property? And I know, is this really a franchise or a property we need right now? Or do we need doing this IP things? Look, I know we just went through a month of 3 movies that totally bombed, that we shouldn't have had new things from IP. But I will say Robocop is more like Halloween in that the franchise never really worked out. And it was a great movie that started a crap franchise. And I think Robocop would actually be something that would really work for that. But I don't know if the interest is there because you got the remake and that didn't work. Although it did make money. And I'm curious who would be Robocop, and some people have said it should be a black Robocop, and like you could deal with the police stuff. But it's like, to do the take they want to do, they kind of have to be as traditional as possible. And I hope they get Peter Weller, but I don't know if that's possible or would work with the script they're going to do. But I would honestly more like Paul Verhoeven, but it doesn't sound like that's happening. All right, so where are we in this? Okay. So Yorgos Lanthimos, who previously did The Favorite and Dogtooth and all that stuff, is doing a Clark Rockefeller show. Clark Rockefeller apparently was a guy who pretended to be one of the Rockefellers. This is a show for Fox Searchlight. Apparently Fox Searchlight is very much trying to stay together under Disney rule and very much wants to keep Yorgos Lanthimos within their fold, and they're going to let him make the show, and apparently a movie as well that Emma Stone might do or something, but no one seems to know what that is. But it sounds at least sort of interesting. Previously, Benedict Cumberbatch had been attached to a project like this. It had not been exactly this one, and apparently he's not attached to this version of that. Next up, we found out what's going on with Bong Jun Ho. He has 2 films in development, as well as his previous film, which I forget the name of. And so he has 2 films in development, both with Neon. But Neon plans to re-release Memories of Murder, which is his earlier film from the 90s. As well as he is playing an English language film that will be shot half in the US, half in the UK. And a South Korean film. And I'm going to read some of this quote. He's preparing one as a Korean language, one, the other is English. The Korean film is located in Seoul and has unique elements of horror and action. It's difficult to define the genre of my films. This is what he said. The English project is a drama film based on true events that happened in 2016. Of course, I won't know until I finish the script, but it has to be half set in the UK and half in the US. So he is developing new things. I'm curious what is going to happen with him, especially with Oscar time. I'm curious why he's announcing things. So before that, the Indie Spirit Awards happened. There's not much about the Indie Spirit Awards, and I think people are sort of getting sick of them because they're certainly fun. I like watching them from the 90s, but they sort of don't represent awarding films that are that indie. They sort of just are like the mini Oscars. I've actually gone to arguments with them on Twitter, and I didn't at them. They found me because I was talking shit about them on Twitter, and I guess they search their names, and that's happened a couple times on the day of the show, oddly, because I've always been like, I don't know how indie they are if you're just going to do just basically what everyone says, they're the mini Oscars. So I've got beef with them, or they've got beef with me, because they did it 2 years in a row. They haven't done it since, and I think the previous head of the Indie Spirit, they'd always say, but it has an independent spirit, and I'm like, I don't know, but I noticed they do have a $20 million cap on that. Marriage Story apparently didn't even get that many nominations because it got the Ensemble Award, so it isn't eligible for all those things. Like, why do you have so many dumb rules, Indie Spirit Awards? I don't know. And it's not the same as the 90s where you're awarding like weirder, stranger movies that don't get this kind of attention, and it would be this cool other award show. But other than awarding things like The Lighthouse, which I don't think will get a ton of nominations and things, and like Hustlers. But hold on. Fun fact, for Aliens 3, Fox didn't want to work with H.R. Geiger and wanted to make an alien that is more Geiger-esque than Geiger. What the fuck? So they designed it based on Geiger's old sketches, never gave him credit? What the fuck? How could you do more Geiger than Geiger? I don't even understand that. Thank you for the super chat, Niji Kishu. Appreciate it. There's actually a really good Joe Blow. I would recommend this to you, Niji Kishu, but other people. There's a really good Joe Blow does this thing, What the Fuck Happened to This Movie? And they recently, literally I watched it today, about Alien 3. It's really great. That's a great series, by the way, but the one on Alien 3 is really good. They didn't mention that in the video, so that's why I bring it up. Or maybe I forgot that part or something, but that sounds really cool. Anyway. Cheers to you. I needed some Red Bull. So thank you for the $10 super chat. That's very, very nice of you. Thank you for all the support, Niji, and thank you for everyone who has given a super chat during the show. And thank you for the support. You guys are very good to me. But the Indie Spirit Awards, my other thing, and this will appeal to all of you specifically, animation is changing, and there's a lot more independent animation. Make a Best Animated Feature category. You need this right now. You need something to differentiate yourselves from the Oscars, which you clearly are not doing anymore. I don't care if we've been fighting back and forth. Literally, this is so weird to me. It hasn't happened in a few years, but it's so weird that like I was on their radar for a little bit. Sorry, I shouldn't keep bringing that up. It made me feel cool though. But they should make a Best Animated Feature category. Obviously, you wouldn't get big movies in there. Klaus probably wouldn't be able to do it because it like costs too much money and they have like a $20 million cap. Maybe they should double that for animation just because animation is obviously more expensive. But there's a lot of smaller animated films that are independent that could honestly really use the attention. And I think that's what the Indie Awards, when I used to watch and John Waters used to host, so clearly it ticked off a lot of boxes for me. I really like the show. Now it has John Mulaney and Nick Kroll, and I think it's very good, despite that I think Big Mouth is sort of gross. I tried to watch, actually, side note, I tried to watch Big Mouth with my wife, and we were like, hey, we've never seen Big Mouth, and like, we're eating, and I was just like, there's fucking balls and like 12-year-olds jerking off and stuff. Like, why would this Cope is gonna get me for this one? But I just like found that show to be disgusting. Like, I just like could not get. I was like, I get that they're kids, and I like remember being a kid around that age and stuff. But it's just like, why do I want to watch this? It's like gross, and I didn't think it was very well written. Anyway, I didn't like Big Mouth. The design's ugly. I just don't. Whatever. Anyway, but the Indie Spirit Awards, I don't think came up much. I do like Hustlers. Is an awesome movie. I love Hustlers. I like that Jennifer Lopez, before Ryan Walterson corrects me, Jennifer Lopez got a nomination because I thought she did a great performance. I hope she goes all the way to the Oscars. I'll probably watch it that night, although I usually do live stream, so I don't know. Maybe if you want to watch me watching it. Charlie Kaufman has a book coming out, which I just wanted to talk about the book. It sounded weird. It's about a novel about a failed film critic, so it appeals to me, who discovers this like great film by a great director that is considered one of the greatest achievements in human history, and it's a 3-month-long film, and it even has scheduled breaks and food times and all this stuff for this 3-month-long film, and he sees it, and it's destroyed directly after, and he has to describe it to people to help like human society or something. It sounds so weird, but I sort of like that concept. I might actually read that book. I like that him and Tarantino are planning like films about people whose lives are definitely messed with through movies and their books. Interesting. I think that would be a cool Netflix. Get your shit together and do that. It'd be cool. So apparently the Justice Society of America, I think I'm getting it, or the JSA, is going to be in Black Adam, The Rock said. Some people have suggested they could even be in Wonder Woman 1984 because she's one of the founding members of that. We'll see about that, but there seems to be a lot of talk of the JSA definitely are going to be in Black Adam and maybe be in other things, and maybe they're going to like forget about Justice League and do that. We'll see. So I'm finally going to talk about the Michael Jackson biopic. Yes, they are literally very much doing a Michael Jackson biopic. How real is this? Because I think a lot of people are like, is this just some dumb idea? Yes, but there's some truth that it could happen. Graham King, who won an Oscar, yes, really, for The Departed, was the producer of The Departed and also produced Bohemian Rhapsody. He previously set up that Bee Gees movie, which I talked about, and another one, I forget which one, but I did talk about it. He's been setting up biopics all over town, all over Hollywood. I say all over town like I have ever been to California, which I haven't. But the Michael Jackson biopic, apparently they have a development deal to do it. I don't know how in a post-Finding Neverland world you could make a Michael Jackson biopic, but apparently they are thinking about doing it. All right. where are we on this? Okay, we're towards the end of topics, and then I'll do Mandalorian, and then it'll be questions. So this one, Ryan Walterson told me about the Clifford. Clifford is coming back to TV, and it's actually happening in December. This makes sense because they have that movie coming out next year, I believe. I think it was in May. I didn't look that part up, and I apologize. But it's going to be on Amazon Prime and PBS in December. It's going to be a little more musical and things like that. It's going to bring back Clifford to a new generation, just in time for the IP to become need to make more money. So Josh Trank reviewed reviewed his own Fantastic Four movie on his Letterboxd account. It was kind of an interesting thing because he basically talks about his own life and how it would how it affected him and how there were a lot of problems and he was overwhelmed and how young he was and things like that. It's an interesting read, I'll put it that way. Niji Kichu's bringing up that it would be really biased based on Michael Jackson and the state. Apparently, so they're not as involved as Queen was in the Queen movie, and apparently they are okay with it. And I really don't know how you can make a Michael Jackson biopic. Actually, interesting, I forgot to bring this up. I had a film professor way back a long time ago who brought up, like, if you were ever going to remake Citizen Kane, you should make it about Michael Jackson. And I always have thought I know I just talked about a Lex Luthor Citizen Kane, but like that would be cool. But a Michael Jackson Citizen Kane would be amazing. So if they're gonna do that, call me, guys. I'll totally, we can make like, I don't know, Tito can be what was his friend that Joseph Cotton played? That would I don't know who that would be. Would that be Quincy Jones? Oh my god, that would be so cool if they did that. I hope. I don't know. Anyway, Niji Kichu, thank you for coming, and please watch Infinity Train. You only have by the way, everyone watch Infinity Train this weekend. It's free. The Cartoon Network website and app or whatever are free and open this weekend. So nice to see you, Niji Kichu. You have a good night. All right, so the Joel Cohen Macbeth. Joel Cohen is literally, yes, actually making a movie without Ethan Coen. The Coen brothers are split up for now. No one's sure if there's drama or anything like that. But Joel Cohen is making a movie without his brother. It is going to have Denzel Washington in a version of Macbeth and Frances McDormand. I'm really curious about this project because, like, what the hell is going on with that? That sounds weird. So Fede Alvarez has signed a deal with Legendary, and he has two projects, and they both sound interesting. One I don't want to happen, which is the Texas Chainsaw reboot. Fede Alvarez previously did the Evil Dead reboot and others, and that and don't be afraid of don't whatever. I watched it, you know what I mean. But I think Fede Alvarez, the Texas Chainsaw reboot, doesn't sound as interesting as his other one, which sounds really cool to me, which is a haunted house movie that takes place in the White House, which sounds so cool, especially because America is built on a ancient Indian burial ground, like all of it. And then also slavery, and then also those Japanese internment camps, and then also all the other evil things Americans has done. So I think there's a lot there's a lot of possibilities with that. I think that sounds really cool. I'm excited for that idea. A White House haunted house movie. That sounds really cool. Please just do that. Don't do the stupid Texas Chainsaw thing. We've had enough of it. Like, don't, man. It's like Texas Chainsaw, 2 was cool. Just don't keep going back that well. It is not the Joel Cohen, is not the Joel Cohen from Garfield. It is actually the Joel Cohen from the Coen brothers. Do you want to see the Joel Cohen from Garfield's Macbeth? Come on. I feel like you do. I think you guys do. All right, so Coppa. The impending doom of all of us on YouTube. It sounds scary. Supposedly they're going to try to make things better for more adult animation and things like that. Supposedly they're not. I don't really know what's happening, and 100% no one really fully knows. There's some people who want to ring the death bell on YouTube. There's some people who don't, and it seems like there's some people who are profiting off of ringing the death bell or hammering the last nail in the coffin. All I know is I have not had any real problems. Supposedly a lot of the channels who have problems have been contacted. I have not as of this moment, or so far. Maybe they're doing it right now. But I hope I hope it doesn't destroy YouTube. I feel bad for family creators who that's their living and that's their job to make content for families, and now suddenly they are going to lose their job. And regardless, I know Ryan Toy Reviews is going to be fine if his YouTube channel falls apart. So who cares about him? But there's a lot of channels who are not that big, who are families who have made their living doing that for the last couple of years, and I feel bad for them. So the Coppa thing, I don't think I don't think anyone fully knows, but it doesn't sound like it might be the horrible thing that it is. YouTube was breaking a lot of rules, unfortunately, but I think that I think it'll hopefully work out, because I feel like there's every couple of years there's a thing that's going to destroy YouTube. Regardless, I think that YouTube, there needs to be a real competitor, and I'm surprised like an Amazon hasn't launched it, or somebody, because it kind of makes YouTube like, if YouTube falls, we're all fucked. And I sort of wish we had it's like, I have a Daily Motion channel. It just has that one short Dave story that can't go on YouTube because of the music in it. But I just don't, I just hope that this gets settled, and I hope good cartoon creators don't have their lives fallen apart, because we've worked very hard to get where we are, and it's really not fair to have that all fall apart right now. Jim versus Ryan's Toy Reviews. All right, so I'm going to go to the bathroom very quickly, and then we're going to do The Mandalorian, notes on the every PBS Kids show ever thing, Patreon questions, and then regular questions. So I will be right back. If everyone needs to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. Again, I'm running long. I know about Twitch, but that's not what I mean. You know what I mean. Anyway, I will be back shortly. I won't take that long, and I will see you in a couple minutes. All right, cool. Well, not a couple. It'll be short. Don't worry. Okay. Hello. Okay, intermission. Okay, I see people. Before I start Mandalorian stuff. Okay. So, before I get to the Mandalorian stuff, and I'm sorry this is going on for so long. Yes. Did the audio ever fix itself? I have no clue. Did it? I hope it did. I have heard about the Twitch Mystery Science Theater channel, by the way. I'm curious about... I never really get to watch Turkey Day because, like, I have a family and stuff. I do want to put out a Mystery Science Theater review on Thanksgiving. We'll see if I get to do that. It's going to be the next Netflix episode I haven't gotten to review or watch because they take a while. Anyway. I wanted to show this shirt before I move on to Mandalorian. Thank you for everyone who's been here the whole time, by the way. Hey, Ice the Wind Rider's here. Sorry work sucked. Where do you work? Don't tell me. At least on here. You can tell me anywhere. I got this shirt. It is way too big for me. If you can see it right here. Oh, hold on. It is cool. I got it from a fan. But it's like, I asked for XL and he only had a 3XL, and it's like kind of like over the garden wall. I thought it was really cool. Yeah. I didn't know there's a Rift Tracks Twitch. That's interesting. Anyway, maybe I'll do a Twitch at some point because I have like literally thousands of videos, so I probably could just do a stream for like 24 hours of all my stuff, so that I've thought about doing that at some point. Yeah. No, I know about. You don't need to put the link because I know where it is. I know where it is. Trust me. I'm on a lot of Mystery Science Theater Facebook groups. So, The Mandalorian Chapter 3, The Sin. Sorry. Yes, Ryan. Atul sent me a Fraggle Rock shirt. You're very entertaining today. All right. So The Mandalorian Episode 3, The Sin. The biggest thing about this episode, other than it was really good again, is that this is the first live-action thing ever. This is the first live-action Star Wars thing ever directed by a woman, and that was Deborah Chow. That is going to happen again next week, although that will not be the first thing. It will be the second thing, directed by Bryce Dallas Howard. And I know Kathleen Kennedy said a really stupid thing in a panel, basically like when she got the action sequences back and found out that that was a woman who directed it. She was like, "Oh, that's crazy. It looks like a man directed that." And I was like, "Oh, Kathleen Kennedy, what the fuck? Seriously? Like, you can't even, like, you never hire female directors and you, like, and you..." Anyway, talk about the movie. What movie? The Mandalorian movie? Why do people say that? They just said some executive was like, "I guess we would do that. I don't fucking know. Maybe a Mandalorian movie? Sure, why not? Make 20 of the Mandalorians. I don't care. That's basically what happened. We should not touch Star Wars. All right, anyway. So, Deborah Chow, who I don't really know that well, but I like this episode a lot because it basically... Obviously, this is Lone Wolf and Cub, and as much as they kind of hinted at possibly he could just get rid of Baby. This is spoilers, by the way, so if you haven't seen this, thank you, Nolan, for being here. Thank you. Nice to see you here. So I like the framing they did, basically, of the idea of the part of his control panel that Baby Yoda's playing with, and how they used that as kind of a framework to show what he represented. What Baby Yoda represented to him and the importance of Baby Yoda, which was kind of just a simple... I love framing devices like that, where it's just like, that's something you think about, where you will say "Oh, my wife always uses this blanket," or your friend always uses this object, or things like that. I like those kind of framing devices. I think they're actually very smart when they do things like that. But I thought this one did that very well because it really sold that to you. As well as when he goes in to get Baby Yoda back, and got an awesome performance from Werner Herzog, who wasn't in the cool action sequence, which I didn't like, but I don't know what he would have done, but I love seeing Werner Herzog. Sorry, Nolan made me laugh. But the scene where he goes in to save Baby Yoda was very tense. I was very much like, "Oh my god, what's gonna happen?" But I love where he sets up the thing and then just walks away and comes back total badass this entire time. I liked when he walked out with the more armor. There's so much in the lore, and that kind of ice cream box with Niji Kichu mentioned earlier. They have a lot of kind of deep lore things within this show, but I also like how they set up the idea, the whole culture of the Mandalorians, how only one of them can be out at the same time, the idea that they were taken out in kind of a post-Clone Wars kind of world, and how that's affected him. And of course that generation would be of course, Nolan makes me laugh a lot. Sorry. Of course, that generation would have been very affected by the Clone Wars, and it's interesting that they're really getting into stuff like that, and really understanding how basically the events of the Star Wars films has affected people who live in that galaxy, which very much this character Mando, I guess we're calling him, has been, and how that's affected how he views Baby Yoda and what he should do with Baby Yoda. We still don't know what Werner Herzog is behind or anything like that, but what I really liked about this is it showed you Mando has a soul, but you also see that he is a bounty hunter, and he could have just bounced and got rid of Baby Yoda, but instead he chose not to. He chose to save Baby Yoda, and that says a lot about him as a person, and it says a lot about the Mandalorians, is that they were able to kind of help him in that awesome sequence towards the end. I loved all the action in this, particularly the getting him out of it. I didn't, when all the Mandalorians show up, I thought that was sort of lame, but I did think they did it pretty well. Supposedly one of the characters everyone thinks is Jon Favreau's voice. There's like some debate about that, and I haven't really checked IMDb or anything. But I find this to be another really good episode, and I saw a take online from the guy who does video essays from Screen Crush, which I think it was interesting perspective. Basically, is like he realized that it's not different. Like, we've never had a Star Wars TV show. It's Star Wars going back to what it's based on, which is serials, and it's playing like a serial where you just get a piece of the story every week, not like a TV show that is set up format wise. Like, this isn't very formatted, other than there's like an opening and an end or something, which I was like, oh shit, yeah, I guess so. But they don't do the crawl like most of it. The crawl from Star Wars was actually a thing most serials would do to remind you. They had just a recap before this one, which I don't believe they had in the second one, but I don't remember. Maybe they did. But I really like the show. I like how it's playing off of the lone gunman, lone samurai thing, and obviously lone wolf and cub, and that's a lot of lones there. But what I really like about it is how it's able to introduce a lot of the world in a very natural way. It doesn't feel like it's like going deep down into Star Wars lore, into like deep nerdery, but it feels more like interesting than that. I still like Baby Yoda, but I mainly like Mando, and I like what they're doing with his character and what they're saying about him and what's happened to the Mandalorian since then. We kind of just get like peeks into that. And this was also fun, like when he says the thing about the jetpack and everything like that. I think, this being the sin, I'm assuming the sin is he broke guild rule and that he has sinned in that he has taken back Yoda. But I think in some ways maybe he sinned to those people, but he didn't sin to his own people. To his own people, he represented something. And since apparently most of the Mandalorians are adopted, I think they have a strong history of being both bounty hunters and protectors, is what I'm getting from it. And I think as a protector and a protector of people and the innocent, he's trying to get people. He's trying to save this little guy who definitely needs help, who needs to be who needs to be saved, and taken away from whatever this weird faction of old empire really is. He doesn't really know. He doesn't, by the way. He tries to find out, obviously, and he doesn't. He just knows that it's evil, and he needs to get this kid away from it. And I like that about it because it, again, plays into the Old West thing, because in the Old West, like, you wouldn't have that kind of communication. And I like that in this weird Star Wars, space fantasy show, they understand that he doesn't know. He just knows it's evil. And I'm curious to, like, what is the reality of that, and who, and things like that. It was interesting also, like, the Mandalorians never take off their helmet, which we know in the trailer someone at least reaches to take off their helmet, and what that's going to mean later. But as for now, the Mandalorian continues to be, like, is currently my favorite show I'm watching right now. And specifically because it continues to be like the classic kind of amazing storytelling that's original Star Wars really was back in the day, which was about being a samurai western kind of a thing rather than being, just a sci-fi thing. And I think this shows those influences better than anything, but it also has really well laid out action sequences and stuff. And it made me excited for Deborah Chow. Is like, who is this director, before saying something stupid like Kathleen Kennedy did. So I'm excited for more of the show, and I'm liking who they're picking for each episode. It feels like everyone's like been perfectly encapsulating each episode, and they've been able to be like sort of different things while sort of the same picture, and I think they've done a great job with that. The only directors who are going to come back are the first two, Dave Filoni and the guy who directed Dope, whose last name I'll screw up. But I'd say I continue to love The Mandalorian, and I'm kind of curious what the sin of this episode will represent, because it's going to represent a lot, and will be something that this Mandalorian can't live down in the future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. All right. Thank you for stopping by, Nolan. Sorry, I'm like reviewing a thing. So let's talk about PBS. So every PBS Kids show ever. First, I very much have to give shout out to Ryan Walterson, who's in the chat, because he worked very hard on that list. That was a very hard list to research. And the more I did research of going through that list and getting the dates and getting the pictures and everything like that, I saw how hard it was to find some of those things, which it really was. I mispronounced. I said the singing station. First I said the swinging station. Then I reshot it and said the singing station, and it's the signing time. Sorry. And then after that, it's is it Animalia? 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 I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm sorry. I just really don't. Nolan doesn't want to talk about PBS. Sorry, Nolan. But anyway, I have a few things, and I'm going to go over them. Notes, and most of them are from Ryan Walterson, but I have to say PBS is interesting. I didn't, when I was researching it, realize it was another network before PBS, of the National Education Network. I forgot about PTV, which I used to watch when they had that. It was just like, here's some kids stuff. Like, they didn't have like a real block for it, but I guess Saturday morning and blocks with Fox Kids were such a big thing. Animalia, Amphibia? No. Co-host Jim Anyway. So I want to talk about some, like, because when I'm doing all this research for these things, you just find extra things. But Ryan found a bunch of stuff for this as well. But first off, when I was researching it, I found Super Y has huge gaps between seasons, like years and years. Not sure why that is at all. Kind of confused me, to be perfectly honest. Some of these shows would have huge gaps between seasons, but Super Y definitely did. I had never heard that Maurice Sendak had a kid show called Seven Little Monsters. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I never heard that Maurice Sendak had a cartoon show. That's interesting. I would like to watch it. I didn't look it up, but it was kind of interesting. But Ryan wrote a lot of notes that I'm basically just gonna read off a lot of it. One was that Cyber Chase. It seemed like a lot of people like Cyber Chase is still on. Cyber Chase is very much still on. It's been on for 17 years. And also has big season gaps as well, but it is still on. I always see like it in the guide. I've never actually watched it. Animalia was co-developed by Tom Rudger, who's written some Tiny Toons, who's been a writer for Animaniacs and Tiny Toons. Nelvana produced shows on here would be Corduroy Elliot Moose, who I originally said Elliot Mouse, which Ryan was worried I would get the Elliot Moose fans angry. We didn't get those. We actually, Barney, if you go to the comments of BBS, Ryan defends the Barney guy didn't argue, but it went back and forth with a Barney fan. The Barney fandom came after us because apparently Barney existed for another season. I've noticed though the documentation on Barney and how it ended is very low. Like, I always thought there'd be a video in there like how Barney ended or something, but anyway. But there really isn't. I think they just ended it, which is boring. But yeah, Nelvana produced shows Corduroy, Elliot Moose, Timothy Goes to School, Seven Little Monsters, again there, George Shrinks, Marvin the Tap Dancing Horse were part of the Saturday morning block. Oh, I didn't know that. The PBS Kids Book Room Bunch, which doesn't sound like the cool kids are watching that on Saturday morning. No offense, kids who watch that. The Electric Company is also the first rebooted show from Sesame Workshop, which I assume they don't reboot. Did they reboot 3G1 Con? I think they are doing that for like Apple TV or something. Todd's TV, Teletubbies, and Boo Ball were all created by the same woman. Didn't know that. Ann Wood. Shining Time Station was America's introduction to Thomas and Friends before Thomas aired on PBS as its own series in 2004. I did know that, and I remember watching. I was never a big Shining Time Station kid, but I did watch it a little, but not a lot. 1998's Naughty, aka The Naughty Shop, incorporated the original stop-motion Naughty series with an original setup in the vein of Shining Time Station. I've never watched Naughty, so that's okay. Word Girls, written primarily by TV comedy writers rather than those with prior experience in children's television. Liberty Kids, produced by Deke, features huge stars voicing historical figures. I knew that about. I don't know why I read that. I should. Can we reboot movie? Why don't we reboot your face, Nolan? Jeez. Apparently Arthur is the second longest running animated TV show on American television, and the only PBS Kids shows that went to made theatrical movies were Follow That Bird, Barney's Great Adventure, Elmo and Grassland, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, and Clifford's Really Big Movie. And I guess there's another one, or is that Clifford's Really Big Movie? Whatever. Anyway, so I'm going to read this question, a Patreon question, and then we're going to move on. All right, so we're going to drink some Red Bull here. Here's a question from uh, Liberty Kids Reboot America by slaughtering the natives. That's funny. Okay, so there's a Patreon question, only one this week, from Sinram, whose channel you should definitely check out. He asked, you spent some time a few live streams ago talking about Doug Walker. Lindsay Ellis used to be a part of his squad and now makes essay videos on her own channel. Do you watch her stuff regularly? General opinion on her videos, or are there any in particular that you are especially fond of? I'm a big fan of hers, as you can tell. I do watch her anytime she has a new video out. I do watch it. I do find her really interesting. I don't like her Pocahontas video. I thought was really great. I even like when she do loose cannons. I like those. I actually like those. I wish she hadn't stopped those, but I understand she's doing these more essay type things. I didn't like the Game of Thrones stuff was good, but I feel like sometimes she follows stuff that I think she thinks will do well, but it's mainly things that she is interested in. I know there's like whole theories about like content creators following things just that they want rather than the audience wants, and I think she does that a lot, which I think gives her a unique perspective, but sometimes I'm like, did I really need that many videos on Transformers? However, I love her Pocahontas video. I liked her Lord of the Rings series, or her Hobbit series, I'm sorry, I thought was actually really excellent, which I know was award nominated. But I do generally like her. My only thing with her is I feel like she kind of stays within the same wheelhouses quite a bit. You could have said the same thing about me, and I'm sure I've made more videos on certain topics than she's made videos on certain topics. That's not to say one is better. I'm just saying I'm very guilty of that. But sometimes I don't think I watch all of the Transformers videos, but I do think she's really great. She seems to be the video essayist on film that most people know, which sometimes can be annoying because I feel like there's a lot of people out there. And I feel like there's more people like Defunctland's Jim Henson series. I'm still recommending that to people, and people are like, Defunctland, what is that about theme parks? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I don't like theme parks. I'm like, shut up. Watch Jim Henson. The Jim Henson series. I would flat out say the Jim Henson series is one of the best documentaries I've seen this year. But I like Lindsay Ellis a lot. I watch pretty much everything she does. I think she's very smart. I wish she would kind of branch out a little bit more than she presently does. But I still think she's really great. And I would like her. Just the Game of Thrones thing, I get kind of sick of Game of Thrones. So video essays like the round table. Nolan's being saucy. All right, so let's answer some questions. Nolan had a questions. Why do you keep denying your involvement in illegal government affairs? I never have denied that. You know the truth. And everyone on this stream does too. Anyway, next question. What are your favorite Akira Kurosawa films? Mine would be High and Low and Sanjiro. Thank you for asking that question. I would actually say Akira, Yojimbo, Seven Samurai. I would say there. Start with questions so Jim can answer. Thank you. I noticed people just take up the admin thing. It was nice of you guys. All right. From Major Mekazawa. I'm going down from Major Mekazawa's long question. I hope no one's above that. If there is, don't repost it too much. Or anyway. Is there a TV show that you like to revisit at least once a year? Cowboy Bebop and Foolie Cooley are among a few shows that I go back to pretty frequently. Major Mekazawa, I would say... Over the Garden Wall I watch every year. I randomly watch episodes of regular show. I used to, I guess controversially, even though I don't like Roseanne Barr or Roseanne as a person, I used to watch the show a lot. Things I've revisited Friends because my wife's really into Friends and things like that. I watch The Honeymooners every year because they do a New Year's Eve, New Year's Day marathon. So I always DVR a bunch of those and watch them in a row. So those would be the shows I definitely revisit every year. Okay, are there any British TV shows that you like? Well, my wife's British, so there are a lot. Fawlty Towers, Spaced are two you should definitely check out. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the British TV series. My dad gave me the DVDs of recently. I've watched it before, but I'd like to watch that again. Gavin and Stacey. Everyone hates James Corden now, and I get it, but he made a great British TV show called Gavin and Stacey. Amazing. Red Dwarf was great. Oh, God. What else? the IT Crowd, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, which I really need to do at some point. Review that. Peep Show. I don't know if you've heard of Doctor Who. All right. Anyway, question: if you can watch an alternate cut of a movie that has been not shown in public or lost the time, I guess, what movie would that be? For me, it would have been the well-known Wizard of Oz movie. I'm confused by that end thing. I would say I've always said the Star Wars cut that played that wasn't finished that everyone hated with the World War II footage. I would also alternate cut wise. Oh God, there was one recently, and it's not the Snyder cut. Who cares? I would like to see the original Creech cut. I would like to see the original Black Cauldron and All Dogs Go to Heaven cut. I'd love to see the original Shining cut just to see that scene. I'd like to see. I think that's it. Yeah, let's keep it at that. Could you watch the Steven Universe trailer? Does everyone really? Is it just Next Animation? Is there other people? Do we want to close the stream on that? Someone else comment on that. And if we get let's say we get 5 comments. I said before a super chat and I'd do it, but nobody took me up on that. So whatever. Zane Powers. Question: how knowledge do you think someone needs to be to make reviews? I know you cited Duck Walker for never doing any research, but what bar do you set, as I worry that can lead to gatekeeping? Yeah, I do agree that can lead to gatekeeping, but at the same point, I do think people should know what they're talking about and have a background in film history or entertainment history, or at least have an interesting perspective. And I think at a certain point you can get away with doing a few, with just having an interesting perspective and not a history background. But in long term, you kind of have to have it. It just shows, and you really should just understand a genre that you're interested in and really understand the history of that. I think if you're going to be a film critic, you should speak from some level of authority. And the whole idea of I'm an everyday film critic-y person doesn't really hold a lot of water, to be honest with you. It's it doesn't really hold up for very long. It's a cool little niche thing. But everyone always thinks yeah, I'm going to show them I'll be a regular person film critic. But I'm well, why would I talk to you? I'll just find a regular person. That's just not interesting to me personally. I love film criticism. So I do think you should have some knowledge and some form of history. That doesn't mean I need to talk to a normal person or a friend or something. They need to have that. But if you're going to make content regularly, I would say understand the history and understand at least the history of the genres that you want to get into, because then you can speak from more of an authority and you know more and you'll have more to talk about naturally. The reason I can just do this show and do other things is because I have that background. And without it, it's going to be really quick and it's not going to be that interesting. So unless you're a real good bullshitter, but you really need the background. It's not just gatekeeping. It's training, and you need that. To do anything, you need that with film criticism. So, yeah. Most underrated spy movie from Ace the Wind Rider. Man, what was the one Philip Seymour Hoffman was in? His last one. That one was really good. I can't think of another one. Sorry. That's the one. I only saw it. Okay. Aside from Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, what were your main PBS Kids shows back in the 80s and 90s? Also repeat this. Animalia. Okay. 3-2-1 Contact was a big show. Ghost Rider was a big show. My brother watched Barney. I was too old for that. But it was on a lot. I would say those, but Sesame Street is such a mammoth, Thoughts on the movies? What? Saving Mr. Banks, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and Fury. I don't like Saving Mr. Banks. I found it to be pretty bad. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Everyone says that's the atypical rom-com. It seems to be the typical example. I've actually wanted to really sit down with it, because of that, because it's considered the best of the 2000s era, kind of the last big studio era of that. So like for real, I have heard that. I would like to know. Fury was, I did a review on Fury and Saving Mr. Banks, so you should check those out if you want to. I don't remember. I remember it was fine. It was okay for the most part. What's your dream Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie? From Nolan. My dream Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie was actually the animated one, TMNT, that Han reviewed. But I would also say maybe doing more of the original black and white comics. Also Turtles in Time, the Turtles, the one where they all meet up together. That was one of my dream ones, I guess. I would say going more in the style of, maybe if they did like actually a kind of more Scorsese influenced Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie meets the original, the first movie ever. I would probably, that would be cool, I would think. Or maybe, they're always trying to make the animated show, the animated series into a movie. I would like them to properly do that at some point. I think that would be actually really cool. Maurice Sendak co-created Little Bear? That's weird. Nathaniel Fogel keeps asking me this. So, are you the reason why Jeffrey Katzenberg left Disney to start DreamWorks? No, I believe that was like a guy who died in a helicopter, dude. So, and I didn't kill him. But that's the real story. It's kind of, Jeffrey Katzenberg left because he was a jerk. Read up on it. What is the best and worst film to experience for the first time on a PSP? I never did that, so I don't know, but it always seemed weird to me. I would say Lord of the Rings, because I think that was on there. I don't know, one of the big budget ones. Clerks seemed fine. When I saw that, I was like, I mean, is that going to get any better, bigger? I don't think so. I like Clerks, but you know what I mean. Question from Major Mekazawa: what do you think of the fact that Matrix 4 is coming out in a few years, and did you watch all the Matrix films in theaters back in the day? Well, Ian and I notoriously did that Cletus the Fetus about ranting about the Matrix. So I did not see Matrix 3 in the theaters. I saw Matrix 1 and 2 on their initial releases. I did not really like 2 all that much. And I've seen them all, and I've seen the Animatrix, but 3 was like whatever. Question: why do you deny the fact that you're a boomer despite the fact that you fought in Vietnam and Korea, therefore having been having been born before then? Because I'm older than a boomer, so I can't be a boomer. How about that? And if you fought in Korea, you're not a boomer. So there you go. Korea, you would have to be born during the Korean War, not before it, to serve in it. Check and mate. What's your favorite click flick? I don't know what that means. There's something. What? I don't. What? Like a chick flick? Is that what you mean? Maybe, I don't know. Okay, people hate James. Yeah, that's true, Ryan. Is it the Snyder? Okay, sorry, I'm like reading these. What's your favorite PBS Kids show, and what is Sophie's favorite Sesame Street? Zane Powers, question: what are your thoughts on AMC's The Walking Dead? Do you like it more than Game of Thrones? I watched one episode and I fell asleep. Game of Thrones, I don't. Yeah, probably. How does it feel talking to big YouTubers you're affiliated with on podcasts? Good. I mean, they're my friends. I like it. I don't know. It feels good because they're my friends. I don't know. Question: one of the pulls of Infinity Trains was its mystery. Now that the mystery of the train is somewhat gone, does that somewhat detract from the enjoyment of book 2? It depends on what they do with book 2. It seems like there's a lot of worlds and a lot of mystery still within the train, so if they keep going within that, I think it would be fine. Frankly, not plausible. Thank you for asking that. Next animation asks, what's your favorite Pixar film? Probably Incredibles. That's an easy. Do you watch any animated Thanksgiving specials from Mandela Butterfly? I would say the Peanuts Thanksgiving special, where they go over the history of Thanksgiving, which is widely inaccurate, apparently, although widely very fact-driven. I always like that, and no one else does. It's really dorky. Paige Howard, when creating something for almost any audience, how does one take and not criticism from critics? I'm a little confused on the wording of that, but I think when creating something for almost any audiences, how does one take and not criticism? How does one not take criticism from critics? I think criticism, if it's not like hateful and just putting something down, is useful if you use it correctly. But I think a lot of people do go too far with it and do go in more of a hateful way, and that's not productive. It should be sort of, you should definitely do your own perspective. But people who just disregard criticism, I mean, that's their choice. But I don't agree with that. I've had filmmakers come to me and say they liked my perspective. I've never heard any of them tell me to go get fucked or anything, but I'm sure it's plausible that it happens. But I think that's unhealthy, frankly. Question: have you ever died at a celebrity's death? I actually did cry when Jim Henson died, but I was a little kid, so I don't know. Favorite Ken Russell film? I don't know enough. I can't think of it off the top of my head. I know I've seen some. I'm sorry. Anomalia is pronounced like animal, but it's animal, like make Aya. This is an Animala stream now? What? Animala? That's a terrible... God, I hate that show now. Okay. What's the most racist film you've ever seen besides Birth of a Nation? Song of the South, but I also saw a film called I Passed for White, which was awful. When will you go to bed? It's getting late. I don't sleep a lot. Sorry, Paige Howard. I should have finished before. These are going long. I'm sorry. What was it like fighting the Empire in the Galactic Civil War? It was cool. Favorite French movies? 400 Blows, The Red Balloon are probably my favorite. Did I mean to say chick flick? I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. It's cool, Courtney. Chick flick. Oh man, I can't think of one right now, but I love anything like Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. But that's not chick flick. A chick flick would be like a rom-com, and a rom-com I really like. I don't know. I can't think of one. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know. I'm not good at... I need to get better at this. Are the Shows Know still your least favorite reviewers YouTube channel? From Zane Powers. I don't really like their reviews. I don't mind them doing like, the Collider stuff. They're fine, although the one that got mad and embarrassed himself on the Star Wars show, I don't really... Mark Ellis, who I've heard, he's actually good on like panel shows and being a film pundit, but I don't really like their reviews. I don't like... There's a lot of pundits who I like them as like their knowledge of reporting and movie news, but I don't really like their opinions on movies. Do you have a favorite Michael Haneke film? Probably the original Funny Games. I really like that film. Is that him? That's him, I think. Did I say that right? I said YouTubers you're not affiliated with. What it's like YouTubers I'm not affiliated with. I'm sorry. Sorry. It's usually intimidating. I mean, if I know them beforehand, I can't think of someone I know beforehand. But it's usually fun just to get to know people and be like, hey, I got to meet that person and I like them. And then oftentimes later, I'm like, oh, I should have. Like I missed Defunctland or I missed Quint Reviews, and now I'm like really into them on Pizza Party. So it's usually fun because you get a new perspective and you learn more about how other YouTubers live who you sometimes I didn't even know about before. So it's often fun to just meet other people who create content on YouTube. So sorry about that. I should have said, I'm not good at reading. Ryan clearly knows. Nolan, Incredibles is unironically one of the best movies ever made. Yeah, I'd agree with that. Okay. Didn't Jim say the most racist film was The Blind Side? I mean, it's up there, but question: when will we have the return of Nolan and the Jim Hillbilly characters from the podcast? Really? I don't remember those characters, but I was doing a Hillbilly the other day. Like, I don't know what's going on. Man, we need to do that again, Nolan. That'd be funny. Question: everyone asks who is Jim, but no one asks how is Jim or why is Jim. So how and why are you? I'm good. Thank you. Question: what's the film you're the most excited to show Sophie when she's older? I was thinking today Nausicaa, but I also 400 Blows because that's a good one. Citizen Kane is a cliche, but that would be a good one. Fury Road. A lot of the Spirited Away, probably, right now. We can do a bit if you call me. This is getting late, so I don't want to go that long. We'll do a short bit, and we'll close out the show on the short bit. Can we do a bit right now? I'll call Nolan. I never do Here, I'm gonna call Nolan. And then we'll end it.
Well, howdy there, partner.
Nolan, what you doing?
I was sitting on my gosh dang computer trying to figure out how to get Monsanto off my ass. I was planting these fucking crops and they just keep showing up.
Nolan, have you gotten that gator off the dang roof?
The gator just made a family on the dang roof. I'm
What?
gonna remove him now.
How is the gator? That takes a long time and incubation and all that. And you telling me you just like you ain't?
I got lazy. I didn't feel like it.
But the gator's been there for a dang month. I leave for a month and you let a gator make a whole civilization like it's The Sims but with gators or something?
Well, maybe you shouldn't leave next time to go to the big city and get some fucking pancake mix.
Well, look, pancake mix is a hard thing to find. I'll tell you that right now. It ain't like the Aunt Jemima at the grocery store.
Well, you could just get some pancake mix from the pancake plants in the lot, in the crops land.
The crops land.
It's the fields where we grow the pancake crops.
You don't know nothing about how no pancakes are made.
I know plenty know how about fucking fuck. Ah. Give me a second. I got this, guys. All right. Monsanto be making them fake seeds and like they plant new crops for the end of times. They plant ramen crops. That's the thing now. Ramen crops are real.
There ain't no ramen. This
Monsanto
is like when you
has them. They're seeds.
This is like when you told me you planted some M&Ms to make a Skittles tree.
I fucking damn you! Look right now.
You ain't got no Skittles tree planted by M&Ms. I'll tell you that right now. There ain't no Skittles tree.
There's Starburst bush right there.
Oh, well, that is true. That is true.
It's all pink.
That is true.
Starburst. Right there.
Well,
right down there.
Well, you better go to sleep.
Kelly the alligators. Kelly, get off the. That's our granddaughter, alligator, Kelly. Kelly, stop eating all pink Starburst. I gave you the old yellow bush over there, over yonder.
Okay, we should. Well, no, and I'll see you later back on the farm there.
I'm running out of minutes. I have to go call my meth dealer too. So
what? You back on the meth?
To skedaddle over yonder.
You back on the meth? What?
Yeehaw!
He better meant his math homework, not his meth homework. Oh, that was crazy. Thank you, Nolan. Thank you, Cool Turtle Boy. Thanks for the ridiculous bit for the $5 super chat. And I think that'll be it. Check out my videos this week for the Infinity Train one, the Mandalorian episode 1 and 2 review, which were obviously from the last stream. The Every PBS Kids show ever, which Brian Walterson made the thumbnail for and did a lot of research for, and the Klaus review. Not enough people did Klaus reviews from my perspective. But anyway, that was it. Thank you for Nolan for coming on. Thank you for everyone for showing up. I'm sorry this was so long again. I will try to make it shorter. I'm not sure if I'll be back next Saturday, but if not, it'll be the Saturday after. I haven't made up my mind about that. Let me know in the chat if you'll be here next weekend. I'm not sure if everyone will, but have a happy Thanksgiving regardless if you are not here. Enjoy all the videos. Enjoy more videos next week. I think movie review vote will happen next week, as well as a Frozen 2 review, hopefully with Sophie, but it depends on if she wants to do it. And have a great Saturday night, and subscribe if you would like to.